Good evening, traders. Welcome to the CloudChartist weekly Ichimoku wrap-up for the week ending December 2nd. This is December 4th, Sunday night. The market's due to open in about 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to get this done quickly so we don't have any mysterious new candles opening up. I'm going to start off with the ES. Looking at the ES, we see that we put in a new all-time high last week at 2213.75. Then we did find some selling, although we did close off the lows of the candle. So this chart is overall completely bullish in Ichimoku terms. If we do pull back, there's a few different places we could pull back to, many different places we could pull back to. We do have a gap here between the 11.7 candle and the 11.14 candle that is at 21.60.50. The 11.14 candle closed at 21.80.25. So there's a fair amount of space in there that we could fill that gap. That would be my first guess as to a downside target if we do continue selling. Overall, though, the chart is still bullish, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens, or look at different time frames. Let's move on to crude. Crude, you note that I have some fibs on this chart. So first we'll look at the weekly candle, and then I'll tell you what those fibs are all about. So crude put in a very strong move last week after the OPEC meeting. Lots of shorts in this area were waiting to get killed, I'm sure. We did fill this gap here from the October 24th candle. But this is fully bullish. We did put in, last week we put in a potential gravestone doji, or gravestone candle suggesting potential trend change to the downside, but we obviously did not fulfill that potential. So let me go zooming back out. So I see a potential inverse head and shoulders here on crude. And I decided to draw the neckline here in order to get these points here. So I'm considering that the neckline to be broken when we get back over, say, around 52.50, something like that. We do have a gap to fill, you can notice up here, marked by this blue rectangle. So that would be a potential target to the upside also. But if it is truly an inverse head and shoulders, the measured move is all the way up here at 76.72. That happens to be confluent with the 61.8 of this entire range from up here to down here, the way I draw fibs, which is not including the spikes. So I think that confluence is important to take note of. That's also, if you notice, an area where we tried to reverse after this downtrend at the end of 2014. We tried to catch a bounce and then continued down, so that's a sort of a semi-consolidation level also. Overall, in Ichimoku terms, disregarding that other stuff, we do have a sideways cloud moving forward. If we do not move higher and we indeed get a trend change to the downside, we do have cloud support down here at 43.81, and then not this week, not next week, but about approximately the week ending 12/19, we have a cloud twist that could be treacherous if we do test it. We could lose support here and move through. I would be surprised to see that happen, frankly, but anything is possible. So that's crude. Let's look at some other U.S. indexes. Let's look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ actually sold off last week and came down and tested underneath the Tenkan-sen and put in a close under the Tenkan-sen. So that's pretty significant. In just a basic pullback, you would, if you were still bullish and the chart is still entirely bullish, you'd want to see the Tenkan-sen held on a closing basis. So it is significant even that it just closed a little bit under the Tenkan-sen. Notice the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are both flat, suggesting sideways action. So if we do continue the downtrend and move into the range between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen. That will be a defined range. We do have this gap fill down here, marked by the blue rectangle, and then we have support down here at the Kijun-sen below if we do get a sell-off. Pardon me, you might hear my neighbor yelling at his dog in the background, which is status quo for Sunday nights around here. We do have a nice rising cloud acting as potential support going into the beginning of next year. So as long as NASDAQ is able to stay above the cloud, cloud support is getting higher and higher, and into the beginning of February and March is back up at the same level where we found a bottom previously on prior pullbacks. So that's important to note also. Let's look at the Russell. The Russell did sell off also last week after the prior week putting in a new all-time high of 1348.10. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen below. So when we have that, suggests price action will be attracted to flats. We are pretty extended over the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen and over the cloud, which is flat below. Then we also have a cloud moving downward into the end of the year, which also suggests a retracement towards the cloud. So it's entirely possible that we'll see some more selling in the Russell. We do have this prior consolidation zone around here, which also is a fib level, a prior fib level of prior 161.8 at 1251.70. So that's a potential support zone, and then the Tenkan-sen at 1235.90 and the Kijun-sen at 1214.40 below. Let's look at the Dow. The Dow actually put in a brand new high last week and looks entirely more bullish than all the other U.S. stock indexes, which was quite strange, really, to see last week. We see, just a really nice bull flag, although last week's candle, the range was quite small, and it is a doji, spinning top type doji candle, so that could suggest a potential for a trend change to the downside. But overall, chart is still fully bullish in Ichimoku terms. This is the most overbought in RSI terms that we've seen of any of the indexes that we've seen so far. Let's look at gold. Gold, after holding the weekly cloud 2 weeks ago, indeed went and held the weekly cloud once again. Let me zoom in a little bit more. As the Chikou here, the red line representing price time shifted 26 weeks into the past, also held the cloud and the Kijun-sen. So that's decent support here for the Chikou, and we did indeed hold the cloud after testing below and scaring a lot of gold bulls out of their positions. There is a potential for a trend change to the upside. We need to see a higher high and a higher low put in, and the shape of the cloud moving up would also indicate that there's a good possibility for that to happen as well. If we do get a move to the upside, the first initial resistance we're going to find is going to be at the top of the cloud here, which is at 1215.10. If we move out of the cloud after that, then we have resistance at the Tenkan-sen up here at 1250.30. Let's look at silver. Silver also actually did confirm a trend change to the upside last week. Put in a long-legged spinning top doji 2 weeks ago, and then last week put in a higher high and a higher low. So it looks like the potential for continued move to the upside is high with silver. Just keep an eye on the cloud next week, which is going to be at approximately 1627 to hold if we do get a retracement to the downside. And the shape of the cloud suggests that if we are able to hold the cloud support, that we will continue to move upward for silver. It's not entirely impossible that we could break through the cloud horizontally if we do not get enough momentum to the upside to get back above the Tenkan-sen before we move sideways through the cloud, as the cloud support and resistance is higher up going into the new year. So basically, silver is going to need to get above the bottom of this cloud level here, about 1742. It's going to need to get above that level by the end of the year, by the last week in December. Otherwise, it's going to break through the cloud sideways and end up under the cloud, which is significant thick cloud resistance for silver. Let's look at the bonds. Well, the new candles are open now, and I wasn't fast enough to get this report done before the 6 o'clock open. We see that ZB, so don't pay attention to the new candles that are moving, pay attention to the prior candles. We see that ZB did put in a long-legged doji candle, potential bottoming candle last week, and in order for a trend change to the upside to be, and we did actually become oversold on RSI last week. So in order to confirm a trend change to the upside, we're going to need to see a higher high and a higher low, which seems entirely possible, especially given the large gap up that we just opened up with. So we shall see. If we do get a move to the upside, we're going to have resistance at the Tenkan-sen above at 156.28. Let's look at ZN. ZN also made a potential long-legged doji potential bottoming candle again, and suggesting potential for a trend change to the upside after being in oversold territory on the RSI as well. We noticed that the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are flattening out. The Kijun-sen looking quite flat at this point. So if we do get a move to the upside, which looks likely at this point, look for resistance up here at 127.095. We actually have a gap fill potential here, and that gap would be closed at 125.080. I'm gonna let's look at a very important USD JPY, which has been important chart to keep an eye on for the commodity complex, gold and silver. I mentioned last week the potential for a trend change to the downside, a topping pattern in place. Indeed, the topping pattern did occur. We did not move higher over where the Chikou hit the Kijun-sen right here. So we are currently moving sideways inside the cloud, so price action is technically neutral in Ichimoku terms. We have resistance up here at the top of the cloud around 115.41 and support at the bottom of the cloud at 111.63. If we lose that support, we will head down towards the flat Tenkan-sen below. Let's just look at the dollar itself. Dollar DX futures contract shows that we're still in a bull flag and moving sideways. But we do have a very flat cloud below. So if we do get a potential pullback, then we do have a gap fill down here that I haven't marked yet, and then we do have support at the Tenkan-sen down below at 99. We'll just have to see what happens with the dollar. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for watching, and good luck trading this week. And it should be interesting with the Italy news coming out to see what happens in our volatile market conditions. If you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, please check out my website at CloudChartist.com, and do subscribe to my YouTube page if you're interested in being notified when I do release new videos. Thanks again, and have a good night.